I'm David Harradine. I'm an artist, one of the people who's now speaking about these things from an artistic point of view. I'm one of a group of people who run a company called Fevered Sleep. We create work in lots of different forms, in theatre, dance, installation, visual art and publication and film, and so all sorts of things. But the project that I want to talk about today is a theatre piece about ageing called On Ageing. I have an hourglass with me, which I'm not going to start yet, but I think it's a 15-minute hourglass, so we'll time the bulk of my presentation once I tip it over. Just to say very quickly before I start, I'm here talking as an individual from my own point of view, but I'm talking about a project that I made with a group of about 14 other people in terms of performers, collaborators, other artists and producers. So I want to acknowledge their presence in the project, even though I speak here as myself. When I was a child, well, I don't think I ever thought about it. You know, you never think about getting older. It's probably just something to do with birthday parties and getting new shoes or going to secondary school or when a tooth comes out. Now I can look back at that time and think, well, that was brilliant because you're not afraid of anything. You don't worry about anything. You don't really think about anything. Not really. Certainly not about what's going to happen in the future. I think that's it. You begin with a clean slate and anything is possible. And then at some point, probably in your 20s or whenever it is, or maybe around 30, you realise that you've started. You start to think, well, this will be my life. I'm nearly 75, and I do not even feel like anything. It's not in here. You don't get old in here, it's all these things. I'm more as though my outlook on life and everything, it's like it was. I still feel very young, really. I feel like I'm 17. I often think to myself, you're 75. I just can't believe I'm that age. It's just these things. They fall apart. I don't know where the years really went. I became aware of it when friends were suddenly very ill, or when they started losing it. They were really slowing up, and I thought, they went to school with me, there's not that much difference. And you gradually start to talk about it. You know, saying about what aches, about this and that. I get up in the morning and I'm walking about and I feel really good. And then I look in the mirror and I go, oh my God, I'm old. Because you don't realise it, you don't feel old. I see people on the television and I think, she's getting old. And then I think, well, look in the mirror, girl. I think you always feel the same, no matter what age you are. It's just when you look in the mirror or when you see photographs. I don't like photographs anymore. I just think, that's not me. I always think that because of Dallas, it helped people believe. You know, it helped women believe that they could live life more fully. I really believe that. I do believe that, you know, that you were meant, once you turned 45 or 50, your dress was supposed to get more dowdy. But you look at those women in Dallas and you'd go, wow, she looks really good. I didn't ever think that I would be my mother's age. Younger people, you know, just don't think about it. About ageing. It feels like ageing. It feels like it's just what happens. It's just what happens, and it's good, you know, because it means that you're alive. It's about living, because you're not dead yet. It's a good thing. It's just what happens all the time to all of us. And you people, you know, it's happening to you already. It's just what happens. That's what it is. So those words have two histories. The first history is the history of an extended series of conversations which took place intermittently between February 2009 and August 2010, in which I found myself talking with different people about ageing. To all these people, we posed a simple question: what can you tell us about ageing? To my parents in the living room of the house I grew up in Yorkshire, to people who we invited to the Young Vic Theatre in London to sit together and have lunch together and talk about ageing together, to people in a daycare centre in Bermondsey, to children in primary schools in Lambeth and Southwark, and to other artists and collaborators who were sitting together in cafes and rehearsal rooms trying to work out what to do with this theme, ageing. To all these people, we posed the question, what can you tell us about ageing? And those words were some of the responses that we recorded in those conversations. The second history of those words is their history as a text for a performance piece, the piece on ageing, which this talk is focusing on, which was performed at the Young Vic in autumn last year. On Ageing was a theatre piece very much for an adult audience. It happened to be performed by children, 7 children aged between 7 and 13. I'm not really going to talk about why it was children, apart from, well, hopefully, as I talk, the reason will become clear. It was to do with bridging this divide between youth and ageing and old age. So those words travelled from the mouths of all these people who we'd encountered and arrived in the mouths of these children who spoke them on stage. The people we had spoken to ranged from a 4-year-old girl who said she was an adult to an 86-year-old woman who really only wanted to talk about the importance of parties. So the show on ageing combined these words with a choreography of objects, hundreds of objects from all stages of life, which gradually filled the performance space. It started out, the space, well, it was a white room, it wasn't yellow. Liz mentioned before we have a yellow issue in the room. It was a beautiful white space, totally clear, apart from this conference-like setup with these 7 authorities who would speak to us about their experiences. And by the end of the piece, the space was literally full of stuff. We started the project with a spirit of collaboration and a spirit of extending an open invitation to people to contribute, to tell us what they thought about ageing. And it quickly became really clear to us that there wasn't one way to talk about ageing, that to talk about ageing at all was to recognise that ageing is not the province of the elderly, but perhaps that ageing is just the central event of living. Everyone we spoke to had a different point of view. For some, ageing was moving towards independence, freedom of spirit, carelessness and carefreeness. For some people, ageing was loss, loneliness, physical discomfort, pain and death. For others, ageing was ambition, desire, hope. And for everyone, ageing was, of course, change. So we wanted to make a piece that would somehow acknowledge and embrace that diversity, that would make a space for all those voices to be heard, and that would suggest that ageing is perhaps not the more or less slow process of dying, rather the simple ongoing process of being alive. This conclusion, the desire to make a piece about ageing as living, was a surprise to all of us, and to me especially.